Hello, and welcome back to the I23 Mastermind, where we give you fresh perspectives on living life and personal growth. Today, I have with me my brother Ike, my brother John, my brother PT, and my brother Jevin, and my brother Shaquille. Today, we're about to get into some conversations about what we've been building for our first session here. We've been talking about entrepreneurialism and lifting weights and exercise and all that type of stuff. But let's get into our what have you built section today. So, all right, fellas, what have you built this week?
So a lot of us, or a few of us actually, work out with my younger brother who's a personal trainer. He's a beast. He got us all looking good. That's why Ike is filling out that shirt the way he is right now. But a couple of the folks who come bring their babies, bring their kids, and their wives come too. And so as of right now, the babies are the ones that are really young. They just kind of stay in the car seat and kick it for the hour. And then the toddlers are kind of like up roaming around the gym. And so while we were there, I had this idea like, hey, what if we could incorporate some just childcare for an hour at a time for families who want to come in and get the workout, right? A lot of times you might have one partner who can come and the other who can't. Or you have to like wake up an hour earlier to drop the kid off at wherever you got to get him to, and then get all the way to the gym. That seems inconvenient and probably stops a lot of families from getting the work in that they would want to. So we're now looking into how to activate childcare within his personal training. So this weekend, I actually talked to a couple people in my family who are in childcare. One, my sister, who has her own nannying business, and then my mom, who actually watches kids throughout the day for folks who gets paid for it. And so I talked to both of them about kind of next steps, and then I'll be just looking into the legality side of it, because when you're dealing with people's babies, you better be straight. So we're just next step in that. So the immediate next step is now to tomorrow have a conversation with my brother about, hey, here's what it would take to kind of dive into this and see if what his interest level is again. And if he gives a thumbs up, we're gonna dive into that to really, one, provide a service to family, but two, it's another way that really makes easy income just by adding another service to the already there.
Nice. Wow, that's a business venture right there. That's what's up.
Good stuff.
All right, who's next?
So what I've been building, I'm gonna break it up into work and personal. So on the work side, what I've been working on is bringing more enthusiasm in the workplace. As you all know, I am an Army officer, and you know, in the Army, what they say sometimes is right place, right time, right uniform. And the thing that people don't add all the time is right attitude. So as an Army officer, when like my section chief, who is a lieutenant colonel, comes to me with a task, I hop to. I basically, you know, get up and run over to wherever he's asking me to be, and I'm just mad attentive, and ready to attack whatever task he gives me with a vengeance. And that is what has been on my mind. So just bringing a level of enthusiasm to my work, so that I am ready for the task mentally before I even get there, and my boss knows that I'm about that life. So that's what I've been working on the work side, on the professional side. On the personal side, I've been thinking a little bit more about retirement. I picked up this audio book by Chris Hogan. It's called Retire Inspired. If y'all haven't heard of it or checked it out, you know, he's the Black Dave Ramsey personality. But yeah, and I like him. You know, he's the athlete. He talks about focus. And one of the things that is in the second chapter of his book is called the what does he call it? It's the RIQ, which is the Retired Inspired Quotient. And so next time we talk, I will have completed the Retired Inspired Quotient, and I will know my number. I should say our number, Gia and my number, for retirement, so that we can have a target to aim at, so that when we are ready to retire, we have a dream retirement rather than a nightmare retirement.
Wow,
That's it.
That's what's up. That's like a vision for the future, like having the number and not just the hope for what you need to survive after working those. That's nice. That's good. Who's next?
So for myself, one of the things that I've been building is just trying to build my network of folks that I'm around in different fields, but specifically in housing development. And one of those relationships was through a mentorship that I'm doing with an individual who works for an organization within the city of Seattle called the Equitable Development Initiative. And basically, it's a fund that helps to give money to locally run nonprofits, organizations, primarily ran by people of color, who haven't had that infusion of like financial capital that so many of our organizations or our communities are lacking. And so just being able to have the opportunity to speak with her, and she put me in contact with a couple of gentlemen who work for an organization here in Seattle called the Africatown Community Land Trust. And pretty much they're a nonprofit organization that uses acquisition funding to secure land that can be then used for community use. And it is a big thing that is a problem in a lot of our communities is that we don't have the capital, or we're waiting to get the capital to develop different things we may want, like a recreation center or a health clinic and such, and being able to have the holding funds that are in place to deal with the regular things that come along with operation of a land. So like property tax, the interest that comes with that. And so they're an organization that pretty much secures land within communities, especially marginalized or gentrified communities, for the community use. And so I'm getting the opportunity to speak with them on Friday just to see how two of them got into the industry that they're in, how they came to be a part of that particular community land trust, and how I can get involved, and more so not just so I can start doing the work, but just so I can start being around in those conversations and gaining a better lens for how equitable development can come about in a city. So really excited about that conversation and see what comes out of that. And I think another thing I'm building on is I'm reading a book called Emotionally Healthy Spirituality. And I'm a person who, and I think for anybody who grew up with any type of faith, you may have grown up in a tradition where you got a lot of the like hard skills of learning, whether it's praying or reading scripture or whatever, but you missed out on the emotional health. You missed out on being more emotionally healthy. And I think in my life, I've seen there's a lot of immaturity that comes with that. And so this book, I'm going through this book with a group of other men. And I think that's something that I'm learning from my own personal journey, is how to be more holistically healthy, not only physically, not only spiritually, not only socially, but also emotionally, which I think in particular a lot of men are lacking, or we just don't see it as being as important. So that's another thing that I'm going through. And so, yeah, so two things that I feel like I've been building this past week.
That's nice. It's like emotional health and a seat at the table. That's what you're building over there. So that's nice. That's what's up. Who's next?
I can go. I've been building, like I mentioned, I think last time, that still building my business, consulting, businesses and personal branding and everything, but kind of been a little more focused on work. I guess I'll break it up like Shaq did, work and then personal. Moved into a position, kind of moving my way up to become a supervisor in this department. So I've been working with this new hire class, kind of getting all the tools and resources together that they need to kind of be successful from the jump. So been in contact with a lot of different supervisors, talked to a couple different managers, just kind of networking, getting my name out there in the department. I've been in this department before, so it's kind of like coming back. A lot of people still know me. They know my work ethic and things like that, but kind of the management has changed. So kind of getting my name out there again to them and just building resources, kind of developing that, which will also go into my business and how I operate that and just kind of the things that help people develop. As far as personal, I think I'm Shaq, you've mentioned it. I've been looking at my working out a little bit differently. How I approach it. Before I was just kind of wanting to get to a certain weight, but I realized that I may not get there because of how my body is built. So kind of thinking about how do I want my workouts to start looking? Am I working out to possibly do something? So I've kind of started thinking about maybe I want to work out to, if I wanted to try out to play football or to play basketball. What does that working out look like? Kind of putting my mind in that kind of mindset of getting my body ready for something. So if there's a goal in mind, something that I love to do, which is to play sports, then that might make it a little bit easier for me to kind of cut out different foods and things like that. So that's what I'm working on personally.
Nice. Some vision setting, climbing the ladder over there. It's nice. Keep it up. What you got, Ike?
I got a few things. I try to get it quick. Just like everybody else, been working out 5 days a week. Most of those with Jevin, PT being there sometimes. And then I'm a teacher, so we started getting ready to go back to work. My school is going back in person. So the last 2 weeks, we've been setting up procedures and protocols and getting our room set up. And so this was the last week before the kids come. So kids will be there on Monday. So I've been preparing for that. I've been working on a nonprofit. So been getting that together and working through names, working through figuring out how to go through figuring out LLC or a 501c3, whichever one I decide to go through, and just seeing that process and what it'll look like. Won't say much. I want to get some stuff concrete before I say anything on here. But yeah, working through that process. And then I've been reading Commercial Real Estate for Dummies. So I read about 10 pages or more a day. And then I've been listening to the history of white people. PT been going through that too. And so I got that on audiobook. So I've been listening to that for 20 to 60 minutes a day. And so just trying to learn some more and have some more information about what's going on in today's times. And yeah, I think that's what I've been doing. And shout out to Black women, just because.
That's what's up. That's what's up. I like it. Building stuff. I like the shirt. I'm gonna probably grab it one soon as well. So
yeah. Jay, you gonna go?
Yeah, my bad. I had a little technical difficulty there for a second. So my what I've been building this week has been a couple different things. My clothing brand that I'm trying to get off the ground. I ordered my first items of apparel from it and went through the whole order management process. That went well. Got them printed and they are on their way because I wanted to test out the delivery process. And they're supposed to be here tomorrow, if not Saturday. So I'm excited. So now actually, I'll know how the full process works and I'll be able to, start saying, come and get it, So I'm excited about that. I figured out a better storyline for my screenplay that I'm feeling really confident about. I had to write a 500-word synopsis of what the story for it needs to be, and I feel like all the best pieces of all the versions before that I was putting together that I liked, I was able to hold on to and bring it together and make a cohesive story. So I'm trying to get that screenplay finished for my film school stuff that I'm doing. And then personal, I'll go into personal stuff. Work stuff is going good. Work is work right now. Personal stuff, exercise. I like, Jevin, what you were saying about trying to get readjust your goal towards something that's like a thing that you want to do, because it is a little different than just like, working out to get to a weight, or just because. It definitely changes it to put it in some sort of like, I want to be able to do like trial for the NBA or whatever, sort of thing. So I'm working out to get to a place where I can run the way that I used to, so I can join a basketball league when this COVID stuff gets all done. Because I want to play sports. I haven't played sports in a long time on a team. So yeah, I'm working on that, and that's going well. I'm doing fast runs and stuff during the week. So yeah, that is what I'm doing this week. So thanks everybody for sharing. We're gonna keep on checking in on that and just following up with what everybody's doing, what everybody's building, everything that they're working on and stuff, and just kind of see where we get to. So for our next session that we're going to get into, I'm going to hand it over to my brother, so we can get into it.
What's up, y'all? Hey, before I get into it, I just want to say that this segment is brought to you by Black Business. And speaking of Black Business, shout out Cardinal Clay. Hey, my boy KO. Hey, Denver legend. If you don't know, get clayed up. You need it. Anyway, y'all, this next segment is for all the barbershop homies. This next segment is for the nail shop ladies. It's for all the conversations that get forgotten, left out. The arguments that nobody really wants to talk about. Get ready for the great debates. So this week is interesting, fellas. I mean, listen, there's a couple of us on here, me and Jevin, who we got kids. Man, we got kids, bro. That's nuts. I have a 3-year-old and a one on the way.
I got 2 of them.
Yeah. And Jevin, you had a 3-year-old and a 4-month-old?
4-month-old.
4 months. Yeah. But all of us were children at some point, so this is relevant to all of us. What I want to get into is disciplining your kids. Now, I feel like there's 2 sides to this, right? There's the old school, right? Like, and it's the exaggerated old school too, right? It's the old school. It's like every day of my life, I got to whoop him. If I even had an evil thought, I got to whoop him. Sometimes I just blink too hard, now I got to whoop him. It's like that generation of folks. And then you got the new school of folks who their kids put them in timeout, not the other way. And so there's this ideology around discipline. The pendulum is swung, right? It went from you beat your kids as like recreation, and the other one is you don't really touch them at all. That you try to find these other avenues and ways to let them know that whatever their behavior was displeasing to you. So the great debate for today is which generation got it right? You know what I'm saying? Which generation understands discipline best? Let's get into it.
I wanna jump in on that. Actually, no. Let me hand it out to somebody else. Somebody else start on that first.
Already started. Just go.
Go ahead.
So I think that there's really good parts to both of them, but I think that the old school got it right, and I think it's because the authority was on the right side of the table. Now, sometimes it's probably over applied. I'll give it that, but I think that there was at least the intention of setting things straight. I run this house, and you have rules to follow, and I'm the one that dictates those rules. I think the communication part of all that sometimes got lost depending on who the parent was and how frustrated they were that day or whatnot. But I think that for the most part, what do they say? Spare the rod, spoil the child. I think though there's some people that don't believe in the biblical aspect of all that stuff. If you just think about a kid that you just let do whatever they want to do with no consequence, whether or not that be hand upside their head or butt whooping or something like that. I feel like you are creating a little a monster that that thinks they run the world. And old school didn't they didn't let that happen. You knew you didn't run the house, one way or the other. So so I would say just for that point, just for like keeping the authority on the right side of the table, old school got a lot more things right.
I don't have a lot to comment on that, but I will say this. When he said, what do people say? Spread her eyes for the child. You mean what the Bible says, fam? Like,
right. That's but not people.
There's people in the Bible. There's
What-
people in the Bible.
What do people?
what Tony them said? What Tony them said again? My fault. Go ahead. Who's up?
I refuse to be punked by a kid. That's like, I refuse to be punked by my seed. But like, I grew up getting whoopings, and that didn't like. I feel like I grew up to be a decent person, but that wasn't the reason why. I hate when people be like, I got whoopings, and that's why I am a good person. Like, nah, that's not why I am the way I am.
I'm a perfect person.
I like got whoopings, and then like, soon as they left, like I went back to doing like bad stuff. Like, so I don't necessarily think that that's necessarily a good thing. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I think it's go kid. I would hope that after a certain age, I could talk to my kids and explain like what the issue is and what they should or shouldn't be doing. And so it is more of a conversation than me like threatening them with violence. So that new, I don't know if I want to be a part of either generation. Like, I'm definitely not with being punked by some kids. I'm a teacher. I refuse to be punked by some kids.
Listen, I've been in this classroom. Ain't no kid ever punked Ike. Real quick, before we jump ahead, I think what Ike said is interesting. So there's studies now that show that the effects of violence against kids, which some people consider discipline, actually informs them that violence against them is acceptable. Mm-hmm. And so in their later years, they're willing to accept more violence, whether that be physical or otherwise, because that was the only form of loving correction they ever got. And so that has to move up with you, right? Like you start to concrete what's acceptable and not acceptable in those formative years, 0 to 3, 0 to 4, right? So it's interesting you brought that up, Ike, of like, maybe getting a whooping didn't teach me everything. Like I would say whoopings didn't really teach me a whole lot, except to fear whoever I was getting the whooping from. But example taught me everything, and patience taught me even more. And so the times where like, I feel like I've gone off on my son, and I look back and think, when I did that, my mom's super patient. Like she stopped and talked to me, and I'd be like, I ain't got time for that. Come here, boy, get these lickings, go sit down. And but that's interesting that you brought that up, Ike, because I was just reading a study about the effects of violence against your kids, which even language is different, because they would say violence against your kids.
Yeah, I was gonna say just even the word violence versus discipline is like, whoa, it feels very different.
I'm gonna go kind of keep on that same string that you were saying. I would say that the old school got it right, but I also understand the new school, not as far as getting punked by a kid, because I ain't getting punked by a kid, but I realized in just how I discipline Isaiah, can see that at that age where he can be disciplined. I started, like, before it was like, hey, you did something wrong, you'll get a pat on the hand or a pop on the butt. But he's at the age now where he has started to ask, well, why? So I'm like, you better do that or you're going to get in trouble. And he'll be like, why? And I'm like, because I said, boy, don't ask me questions. Because I said, don't ask me questions. But I can start to see now when he does get a pop on the hand or whatever, it doesn't really affect him. He's not really like, okay, now I got to do this, because it's like, I have done it so much when he got in trouble, not like it was every day, but my first instinct, because that's what I knew, was to go and pop him on the hand or whatever. He's now like, okay, it's not going to change. I'm just going to do what I want anyway. So now having the conversation of, hey, you don't need to do that because he's already articulating that he can ask why. So there's a reason behind why something is happening. So I can understand when a whooping or whatever is necessary, but I also understand that you also have to talk to them as well and help them to understand why they shouldn't be doing what they're doing or why what they did was wrong. So I'm in the middle, but I would lean more towards, hey, you can get a whooping if you do something wrong.
I'm in agreement with Jevin. I'm agreeing with like, ain't none of y'all said nothing crazy. So I agree with y'all. I think what I want to do is I want to elaborate, like many of you, I experienced the lash, the belt, the whip, the switch, the extension cord, all of the above,
refrigerator,
and Jevin, like what you said about having to explain why. I think the most important things for kids is value construction, being able to teach them the why and the value that underpins that why. A lot of times in my work, like we talked about enthusiasm earlier, I think what kids need to know is that they can try and it's okay to make mistakes. I think sometimes what whoopings do is they create inaction because a kid thinks that action will equal pain. And that is what I don't want I don't want to put that in my kids. I want my kids to be courageous and to jump out and to do things and to be like, okay, I made a mistake, but it's not the end of the world. I can get better, I can do better, I can learn better, because there are things, but I want them to have the underpinnings of the values so that they know the difference between right and wrong. So I guess when a kid is a child and doesn't have language, maybe you can, give them a little tap so that they can understand, okay, and then explain the value behind what's going on, and then I want my kids to strive based on those values and be unafraid to make mistakes. I think that's really what I want. But yeah, the old school got it right, man. The kids gotta know. They gotta know. They gotta know.
What's interesting is everybody keeps saying the old school got it right, but none of y'all agree with old school. Y'all just agree with a piece of in general. Cause Shaq, like, I'm gonna be real, old school didn't give a rip about the value placement. They gave a rip about respect of my household. It wasn't about development of child. It was about fear me or else.
But would you say that was them saying that's the development?
Yeah. I mean, because wait.
Let me answer that. So here's my thing. If that's the development, then all you're developing is trauma. If the only thing a child is supposed to learn in that time frame is to fear me or else the consequences, that kid will be gun shy, for lack of better terms, in just about everything. And I know that because I'm that kid. Like when I was
me too.
And me and Shaq had talked about this. When I was a kid, like my dad did not know that I was a character. Like he didn't know how big my personality was. He had no clue. Like my mom would be like, suppose y'all don't know. So my dad was in and out of prison when I was a kid. So when he would come home, he'd be the disciplinarian. And so he would miss a lot of me growing up and developing. And so my mom would be telling him like, oh, PT's so funny. PT's so energetic. He's such an entertainer. And then he would get home and the first 5 interactions with them ended up in a whooping or some type of disciplinary action. And so when he came around, I just shut down. I respected him. I did what he said. Matter of fact, I would do stuff before he finished the sentence. Just because I was like, yo, I know where this is going. Let me get ahead of the curve so there's no trouble behind me. But what was lost in that was my ability to express and do what Shaq said earlier, be able to try something, make a mistake. I used to think making a mistake was the end of the world. I would have a full-on mental breakdown. Like, you know how that kid's just having a fit. No, kids are people.
Nah, bro.
They be having a mental breakdown. I would be
You think he gonna get a whooping?
He said, you don't know what's at stake here.
You don't know what's gonna happen when I get home. No.
They said I left the fidget that door open. You don't know what's going on.
Lord.
But it's hard because it's like I think the good that's in there is the respect part of it. And there were some conversations. Like I had a lot of conversations with my parents when I got a little bit older, when I was more able to understand them. I think maybe if we were to infuse some of the new, maybe those conversations started to happen sooner. Like the in-depth part, like Jevin, what you talking about?
Or
like,
at all.
Or at all. Yeah, or at all. Yeah. I mean, because I had, so my parents, I have a very verbose mother, so we had a lot of conversations, especially when I got older, about like why and stuff like that. I will say, like, if you, yeah, there was a lesson. Like it wasn't just consequence because, it was consequence. It wasn't just consequence for no reason. It was consequence because this, and the reason I'm instilling this consequence and whatever right now is so that in the future you can, it'll benefit you this way in the future and stuff like that. And those conversations that kind of came the older I got, and I think that they happen at all is a blessing. But I think like maybe the new school is having those conversations more often and more in depth, younger, in addition to whatever discipline stuff.
I want to hear where John's about to go. Oh, sweet. I'm glad you jumped up.
Yeah, I think that's part of what my thinking is around it. Because again, I came from parents who were of that old school nature, and for sure, I was the one in my family who was getting it the most. I mean, they used to have a magnetic board on the refrigerator to write down everything I did bad. So my dad, he dreaded coming home because he was like, "Oh my God, what am I gonna have to whoop him for this day?" So I think for myself, I feel like it's a combination of the two. I think what I always appreciated when I got whooped was that my parents always talked to me afterwards. There was never like a situation where you just got your ass whooped and then you just went to bed. It was like you always had to sit
that out. You gotta bleep that out.
Oh, really? But it was always a situation where they had a conversation with me afterwards and explained why this was happening. And so I was aware of when stuff was happening and why. It was never a surprise or anything like that. But I think it would have been helpful at times for those conversations to have happened before you got whooped. Like, I think there were some times that it didn't warrant it. That may have warranted more of a conversation than actual like physical discipline. And so I think for myself, I'm seeing a little bit of the combination of the two. And I think the older I've gotten, the more I've been like, not just being like, all right, do this because I told you so, but actually being able to, now that I understand how to articulate myself better, to explain to my future child of like why this is an acceptable behavior, why we have to hold ourselves to a better standard than that. And I think, and so I think I'm getting to that point of realizing that that's a lot more of what I'm wanting to lean into. So yeah, I think
I like the higher standard you said. I think like when I was young and I thought about having kids, I don't have kids yet, but when I was thinking about it, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna whip my kids. And a lot of that was just because of the culture. Like culture says black people whip their kids, white people talk to their kids and put them in timeout. And so to like defend the culture, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do this to defend the culture. But as I got educated and as we all worked at the same sports camp, working with kids, and then me coaching, mentoring, and then eventually teaching, and me spending a ton of time with kids and during the school year, being around kids, sometimes more than their parents are around them. Like, I legally can't put my hands on them. So I have to figure out a way for them to respect me that I can't put my hands on them. So like if I can communicate with a student and and they going through their hormones or they not liking me at the time or for whatever reason we not vibing, and I could get through to them in a conversation, why can't I do that with my own kids? And then I learned from like personally, like what I learned from like being whooped is either don't do it in front of them, or violence, or fighting, or putting my hands on somebody is the reaction to the cause. So it's cause and effect. So somebody does something wrong, then I put my hands on them. And I grew up fighting. So I think some of that was the environment I was in. Some of that was when I did something wrong, somebody put their hands on me. So if somebody did something wrong in my eyes, I put my hands on them. And I don't want to teach my kids that's the way you solve problems. You definitely defend yourself when you have to, but that's not the first way you solve a problem. And so I've learned through coaching, through teaching, that kids being afraid of you is one thing. They'll like stop doing stuff in front of you, and then once you leave, they'll go back to it. But kids being disappointed, kids seeing that you're disappointed in the way they act, are thinking that you're going to be disappointed, like that'll change the whole attitude or their whole movement. Like them actually like caring about you and caring what you think about them, and then them feeling disappointed that they did something outside of that, like that brings hurt to them in a different way than that them being scared of you.
It makes me think about conviction, like conviction and like where communication plays a role of like understanding more so than the physical part of it. I was also thinking as you were talking, I was like, okay, so we have to teach, if you did it that way, you would learn like how to defend yourself and how to communicate kind of as more separate lessons that would probably make you a little bit more rounded about like how you approach them. Like you don't approach, anger isn't like seconded with like physical interaction that's like aggressive.
And I thought that's what I was supposed to do, and then I got into a fight, and then I got beat again. I was like, wait, this is confusing.
Yeah, like what am I supposed? What was the part that I did wrong again?
Like, I'm in trouble.
If you're gonna teach your kids to fight, you got to teach them explicitly. Okay, right now we're learning how to fight.
This is fight. This is the versus this is the one. This is
between what John said and Ike said. I think there's a tension that like parents have to learn to hold of what we want to get to initially is that kids don't want to disappoint the people that mean the most to them, right? And in their more formative years, their parents or their caregivers are those people, correct? Right. But we want to move them to, or we want to help them move to, because we can't. Here's what I realized about language, right? Like in my mind, because I'm just wrapped in misogyny and like violence. Like I'm always making someone do something. Like my language is always, it's always like, I'm gonna make you respect me. And it's like, I can't make you respect me. Like I can put these things in place and you can still, like, I think about it like in the life or death situation. Either you give me the information or I'll blow your head off. And there are cats.
Either way.
There were cats. But there are cats who would be like, blow my head off. Like Like, you can't make them do nothing. So, but you want to move them from disappointing you to not disappointing or not going back on their own actual values. And when I think about it like that, this is the first time, epiphany, that makes me want to kind of switch the way I've been handling Pierre. Because I want to move him into, this isn't what Daddy said. This is just a value that I have. And because I have this value, right? Like responsibility is a value.
So it's like you're creating a child. Imagine a child at like 5 that has a value system, not like just a set of habits. Like, be nice.
But they do have a value system. That's the thing. They're whole people. That's what I'm trying to say. Is that a 5-year-old already has a value system.
But what I was gonna say is that they are aware of it. Like to not just have one that was created by a bunch of habits that are formed, but to have one and to be aware of it, even to the point of even being able to explain it to someone.
They're like, why don't we do this? We don't do this because of.
Yeah. I mean that'd be amazing to see, and do how to defend themselves.
Hey y'all, this conversation was dope, flat out. Appreciate y'all in listener land for taking the time to listen. If you watch this episode, can you please go ahead and comment? Like, what do you feel about the old school, new school forms of discipline? What do you think about it? Give us your 2 cents. maybe you don't want to comment. Maybe you want to write a whole bunch. You can actually add a little video in there too, and we can watch that, and we'll give feedback on that on our next episode. So we would love to hear from you too. But I think this is going to conclude our latest segment of the Great Debates.
Look at you putting new stuff in it.
Come on now.
That's what's up. Go ahead, John. All right.
I'm
ladies and
basically
gentlemen,
P. Diddy. I just want to remix stuff and dance in your video.
That way, baby.
Hey, thanks everybody for joining us for this episode of the IT3 Mastermind. And as always, keep going.